Drew Leaf.
All right.
Oh, hi, everybody. This is a KMOX Roundtable on a Monday at noon. It is great to be with you. My name is Tom Ackerman. I am joined by Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, and Kevin Wheeler. We are thrilled to be able to talk some topics with you in the area of sports. Gentlemen, let's get right into it. There's so much going on right now in the world of sports. It's an absolute whirlwind. I know your remotes are probably worn out from the weekend. Let's start things off, though, with what transpired last night. Bernie, I'm going to go straight to you. I need you to talk some sense into me here. I am a little bit torn here when it comes to Tommy Edman. I love Tommy Edman.
Mm-hmm.
But Tommy Edman wearing a Dodger uniform and winning an NLCS MVP kind of gets me to my limit again when it comes to former Cardinals. Am I making too much of it? Is this, again, the obsession over former Cardinals, or do I have reason to be concerned about another one going on and flourishing in the postseason?
I think in general, Cardinals fans, some obsess too much about every former Cardinal, and there is a difference. I mean, people like some former Cardinal will have a good week and it's like, oh my gosh, can you believe they gave him away? In this case though, see, that's the thing. It's like, be discerning about it. It's perfectly natural and understandable. And you don't need my approval, but I approve. Anybody today that wants to go, can you believe Tommy Edman's doing this? Here we go again. It just keeps happening and happening and happening. Randy Arozarena was the League Championship Series MVP in 2020 for Tampa Bay. I believe Adolis Garcia was for Texas last year. Now we have Edman. That's three former Cardinals have been MVPs of the LCS. And there's a very big number of former Cardinals that have done well in the postseason after this. But I don't blame them for making the trade that they did. Maybe one nitpick I have is that, after the game last night, Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, and Andrew Friedman, the team president of baseball operations, they both were basically talking about how the Dodgers have wanted Tommy Edman for a long time. I mean, they've just said, well, we probably shouldn't say this, but we've really loved this player. Well, I don't know. When Brendan Donovan becomes an all-purpose weapon in 2022 and wins a Gold Glove for his defense, maybe you look ahead a little bit. You say, well, probably not going to keep Tommy after a certain year. Maybe his market value is really high right now. Maybe there's we ought to put it out there and see what teams will offer. I mean, that'd be my only question. The Cardinals got Erick Fedde out of the trade, and I think we'll have a much better idea whether that worked for them after next season. But yeah, I don't blame any Cardinal fan for being just kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's happening again type thing.
Yeah, Matt Pauley, let me go to you on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's two very different things here. And to Bernie's point, the fatigue of former Cardinals performing well, that's a legit thing. And Bernie went through all the names. Like, I understand the frustration. But when you take a step back and look at that trade, that was a good trade in the moment. That John Mozeliak got a ton of credit from even people who did not like him for that trade. Edman, I'm not denigrating Tommy Edman when I say this, because he just put together a spectacular postseason run and a great NLCS, and he absolutely deserved the NLCS MVP. But we know about his right-left splits. They aren't fantastic. The overall numbers he put up after getting to the Dodgers weren't great. They were fine. They just weren't fantastic. I think, and this has a lot to do with what's going to happen with Erick Fedde moving forward, I would argue that Erick Fedde is going to be more valuable for the Cardinals moving forward than Tommy Edman would have been. To Bernie's point about, look, the long-term plan for Edman with the Cardinals, anybody could see it. Like, he was not going to be a Cardinal for a really, really long time. He didn't have a spot. Center field was not going to be the place that he was going to be all the time. We know about Mason Winn at shortstop. Like, it made sense to move on from him, and they got Erick Fedde. Now it's up to Erick Fedde to make that trade look good.
Yeah, I think the one thing that you can be emotional about is that the Cardinals are not in this position, right? If you're a fan frustrated that the Cardinals are not one of the playoff teams, and these guys, whether it's Edman or Arozarena or Adolis Garcia, aren't helping you in the playoffs, it's because you're not there. To me, that's it. It's not about Tommy Edman. Look, Tommy Edman with the Dodgers in the regular season was the same guy that he was for the Cardinals the last 2 years. Same numbers, same everything. He's had 5 or 6 great games in a row. That's awesome. But David Eckstein won the World Series MVP in 2006, and he was never a league average hitter again after that. This is not some sign that Tommy's on his way and he's fixed. And by the way, I didn't hear anybody whining about Arozarena this year when he was basically a little bit above average, or Adolis Garcia fell off. Now, in fairness, those were misses. We can clearly say they were misses. They're bigger misses than trading Tommy Edman for a starter, right? A starting pitcher that makes $7.5 million that you're going to need next year. So I think the emotion should be, one, you wish the Cardinals were here, and two, happy for Tommy, man. I mean, the Cardinals make Tommy Edmans almost every couple of years. They are really good at that. They're really good at finding the utility guy that can move around and do a lot of things. We need to be worried more about the impact guys, which is what Arozarena can be, which is what Garcia was for the Rangers in their World Series run. I'm not as worried about the guys that move around a bit because they always find those guys.
Yeah, and he was very complimentary after the game. Tommy was talking to Alex Rodriguez about the Cardinals, that they always put him in good positions, and he knew how to slow things down during big moments. Remember, 5 years ago, he was the Cardinals' best hitter in the NLCS against a great Nationals team. He also credited the Cardinals for giving him multiple positions to play, so that got him used to the Dodgers moving him around. I am very happy for Tommy Edman, and you're right. Yeah. I think it's a great example of the Cardinals' ability. It is proof that they can draft and develop players. The Tommy Edman was a perfect example of a Cardinal that was developed through the system. Bernie, it might be a little different, let's say, if Dylan Carlson went on a tear and won the NLCS MVP and said something like, hey, I'm just glad to be with a team that trusted me to do the job, or something like that. I think that's where maybe people would have more of an issue. Like, well, you traded Dylan Carlson for nothing, and now you didn't give him the proper pathway. I think that's where the Cardinals need to head here. How do they get the proper pathways to success?
Listen, Matt, my friends and colleagues, Matt Pauley and Kevin Wheeler, and you, Tom, you've made really good points. Those points need to be made about sort of the logic of trading him. I don't disagree with that at all. But my point is that it's just, I don't blame any Cardinals fans today that just feel burned again, stung again. That's all I'm trying to say. It's because it happens over and over again. It's okay to live in the moment, but I always try to apply long-term logic to it as well, which you guys have done, and tip of the cap to you. But when you look at something, and I'm going to read a stat here, and it's not convoluted at all. This is what I'm talking about, where it just stings. That's all. In the moment, it just stings. In the NLCS, 6 games against the Mets, Tommy Edman had 11 RBIs and 27 at-bats. As Cardinals, Goldschmidt and Arenado in 72 at-bats have 5 RBIs postseason. That stings.
Yeah.
It burns.
Can I change the letter G to the letter K? That stinks.
Cardinals fans shouldn't be, not that you guys are doing it. You're not.
Right.
But Cardinals fans shouldn't be shamed for just sort of feeling a little red today, as in, I can't say the word, just the red rooster type thing.
Ernie, you're bringing back the AZZ.
Yeah, the AZZ, the red AZZ. They shouldn't be shamed for that. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. My first reaction when I see Edman holding the trophy with a Dodgers uniform is like, oh man, I mean, come on. It's just after the other. But when you really break it down, I totally get it. I look at, actually, I led one of my sportscasts today with the cleanup hitter for the Dodgers won the NLCS MVP. He had 407 with 11 RBIs. No, it was not Ohtani. It was not Betts. It was not Freeman. It was not Teoscar Hernandez. It was Tommy Edman. Like the next thing, Matt, that I actually said this in the sportscast in jest. I go, what's going to happen next? Paul Goldschmidt wins the ALCS MVP next year with the Astros? I mean,
probably.
Could be.
By the way, give credit to Dave Roberts for putting him in that spot. Go with the hot hand. Build your lineup to have success, the most success on any given day. Like, people always want to see these set lineups and guys being in defined roles. No, put the group together every day, both from a personnel standpoint and from an order standpoint. I think we all make too much of batting orders, but put the group that's going to give you the best chance to win, and that's what Roberts did.
You know, it's great too. We play the lineup game all the time, right? We've been doing this for years. Tony La Russa used to have to. In fact, when Tony would be on with Ron Jacober or you, Tom, when you were in for Ron on Sports on a Sunday, I would bet 30% of the questions were about the lineup. Why did this guy bat seventh? Why is the pitcher batting eighth? Look at these lineups. You've got the best hitter in the world batting leadoff, right? You got Shohei Ohtani, and then you've got Mookie Betts. Like, they have an interesting lineup where you got your two best guys right up top, and then your utility guys batting fourth because he's going to put the ball in play, because he's going to be fast and stay out of double plays. And in the case of last night, you were going up against a lefty. And look, the one thing we know Tommy can do, Tommy kills lefties. He doesn't hit righties. He really never has at the major league level. But that's the Dodgers. That's Dave Roberts looking at it going, if I can get him 2 at-bats against Sean Manaea, who's a lefty, he's got great numbers against them, and he's going to have guys like Ohtani and Betts on base in front of him. I mean, you know, we need to probably be a little less attached to the old stereotypes for lineup places, because these teams are proven to us you don't need to look at that.
Just a quick afterthought on that, just to try to be funny here, probably will fail. You know, the last time there were set lineups in Major League Baseball, like, you know, those old, sometimes you go on YouTube or whatever, you can see, and I know Cardinals fans have seen them, where, you know, they sort of have that black and white footage, and sometimes it's color footage of like the Cardinals playing in 1967, 68 World Series, when all the men are dressed up. You can see suits, you can see jackets and ties, and the women are all, they all look like they're, you know, they're about to go to a swanky party or something. That's the last time there's been set lineups. And why this town continues to be obsessed with it to the point of borderline cuckoo, I have no idea. Set
not
lineups
just
have
this
been,
town, though.
well, that's true.
I did post game in Milwaukee for 6 years, and they hated the Craig Council lineups.
Wow.
Yeah, well, he had no idea what he was doing, of course. No, I shouldn't say this town, but it's like, I just don't get it. It set lineups went out years ago. You don't have to like it, but it's not going to change. So what, you know, set lineups actually make sense to a point, but don't you want your manager to look for the best matchups?
Yeah.
Like, the object is to win,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everyone can be fantasy manager. I get it. I like to do that myself, but the object is to give your team the best chance to win.
Yeah.
And for all the talk about Ali Marmol this year, I've had the stat, I think maybe on here before, there were like 23, 24 teams that used more different lineups than Marmol this year, but you think he's the only guy that ever does matchups.
Yeah, it does show you, by the way, how many fans only watch their team and don't watch.
That's right.
Else.
That's right.
Yeah.
I stand corrected by Mr. Pauley.
With
Good
Bernie
job.
Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler, I'm Tom Ackerman. Matt, before we talk about after the World Series is over, Cardinals will hit the ground running, you would think, with this offseason. Matt, who do you like in this World Series, Yankees or Dodgers?
I lean Yankees. I like that pitching just a little bit more. They've got, look, I'm not taking anything from the Dodgers lineup where you've got Betts and Ohtani, but Stanton doing what he's done already in the postseason to go along with Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. It's a 51-49 lean, but I lean Yankees.
How about you, Kevin?
I'm going to lean Dodgers, and it's not a strong one. It's kind of like the weight that Matt's using, the 51-49, because both of these teams have, I mean, you could argue 4 best hitters on the planet are in this series. You know, I mean, or at least the worst case, 4 of the best 5 or 6, right? So both of these lineups are going to be really powerful at the very top of the order. I think the Dodgers have a little more depth to their lineup. I think they fall off a little bit less once you get past the 4 and 5 spots. I think the Dodgers are the better defensive team. Yankees are not a good defensive team. Judge does not cover a ton of ground. He makes the plays, but he doesn't cover a ton of ground. Soto's okay in the field. Volpe's good at short defensively, but they're questionable at second base. I've seen a little bit of flailing a bit from Austin Wells here in the postseason, probably just a rookie getting tired. But I like the Dodgers. I think they have a little bit more balance, a little better defense.
Bernie, who you like?
I go back and forth. I think the Yankees have more upside with their starting pitching, and I'm not talking about pitching 7-8 innings. I mean, I'm talking about just giving them 4 or 5. I think the Yankees have the better bullpen. The Dodgers bullpen has hit some real high notes, but overall, it's kind of like you don't know what you're going to get. I think Freddie Freeman is the X factor, because if you look at the big 3 with the Yankees, and I mentioned this to Tom on Sports on Sunday Morning yesterday, you know, Judge and Soto and Stanton, They drove in 19 of the team's 25 runs when they beat Cleveland. They had 9 of the 10 home runs in the series for the Yankees. If the Dodgers can't sequester those guys or suppress those guys or just keep them down from just taking over and destroying everything, I like that big three. It's incredibly talented and productive. But Freeman would also give, with all due respect to Tommy Edman, Freddie Freeman in peak form would give them big three that could match the Yankees' big three. But I don't know that Freddie Freeman's capable of doing that, even if he plays. So I'm going to go Yankees. It's a tight call, but I'm going to go Yankees.
I'm sorry, Tom. I was going to say, to build on Bernie, isn't it fascinating too that like Luke Weaver may be the difference? Right, like Luke Weaver might be the guy because he's been so good in the pen with the outside of one game where he could be that guy.
He is, and the ball's just exploding out of his hand. And, I like the Yankees. I think it's the Yankees' year. I do have some concerns about that Dodger team. Bernie just pointed to one of them, Freddie Freeman. Jack Flaherty's got to bounce back from getting blown up against the Mets the next time around. And, boy, that Yankees team is ferocious. I mean, we already know what Judge can do. Stanton looks great. Juan Soto looks like the best hitter on the planet. I mean, he is just so confident every time he's up there. And, of course, they have the supporting cast. I think the Yankees get it done, maybe even in 6, but we'll see. But when this is over, Bernie, the thing that's going to be focused on here locally is what does the Cardinals move? Because once the World Series gets out of the way, then the Cardinals start to make public statements about what they're doing. I guess first on the docket for me is how much salary are they reducing? And where are they going with this current roster? That'll be the big question.
I don't have a good answer. I wish I did. Look, I expect the payroll to go down, but as you said, it's like, well, what are we talking about? If they're going to trim payroll, how much are we talking about? Are they going to not add? I think they need to be on the lookout for economical free agent purchases to give themselves more depth without doing something that's going to interfere with the rebuild. I don't know. Maybe Wheels and maybe Matt Pauley have a better answer. I'm at a loss to try to forecast this. Because I don't know how far they're going to go with the cut.
Matt, what's your read on it?
I still think a lot of it is connected to the TV situation and what happened this past week with FanDuel coming in as the sponsor to take over the naming rights. I don't know how much cash that's being infused into this. I still think the Cardinals are in all likelihood not on Bally, FanDuel, whatever next year. But they did not cancel the Cardinal contract when they canceled those other ones recently, the Brewers and the Twins and the Rangers and all of those. It's technically a joint venture. That's why legally in the bankruptcy hearing, they were unable to cancel it. But if they get this cash infusion and those folks say, you know what, we're making money off the Cardinals, we're going to stay in there, maybe they find a way to survive and the Cardinals are less worried about the TV money, at least for one more year. When there was that press conference and they were basically asked, how much are you going to drop payroll? And the answer was, well, we're still looking at things. I don't think that was the Cardinals lying to us. I think that was the Cardinals not really knowing what it was going to look like next year in terms of revenue, both from a TV standpoint. And also, there's a pretty big thing happening in a couple of weeks in an election, and sports gambling is another thing where the Cardinals are going to be able to bring in a lot of money if that happens. So, look, we know that Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, those options are not going to be picked up. That's going to be the first thing that they probably do after the World Series. We know that Paul Goldschmidt, his numbers coming off the books, and he is in all likelihood not going to be back. That's a lot of money already going away, even with some built-in raises. Can they go more extreme than that? Sure. But could that be the majority of the money that goes away this year? Yeah, I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, and some of this, they even said, Mo said this, some of this is going to be up to Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, and Wilson Contreras. If they're not happy with the direction that they're going in their meetings with the team, that might impact, whether or not you're going to have those salaries on the books. It doesn't mean that the team is trying to dump them, but if Sonny Gray says, hey, look, I only got 2 years left and I don't want to take the risk of not contending, can you deal me? Well, that's another $26 million a year coming off that doesn't need to come off, but it could. And I think that leads to a lot of that uncertainty. My advice to Cardinals fans would be to not care about payroll this year. It doesn't matter. They're taking this year is about resetting. And to me, it should be about finding out what you have. Is Alec Burleson an everyday player as a first baseman, DH outfielder? You got to find out. You're not going to find out magically 2 years down the road. The only way to know if he and Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman and Thomas Saggese, the only way to know if these guys can do it is to give them the opportunity to do it. Those are all inexpensive players. You've got starting pitchers. You've got Michael McGreevy, who looked great down the stretch, who may or may not be a star, but he might be a useful guy. You're not going to know if you park him in Memphis again next year. I mean, like if they've already advertised this as a reset or a reboot or whatever, then the payroll shouldn't matter this year. Down the road, it should. Down the road, they should get back to where they've been. They should get back to being a top 8, 9, 10, 12 payroll at some point. But for this year, I don't even care. Just let's put a good team out there. Let's find out more about the young guys rather than paying someone $12 million to eat innings.
I'm with you on that. Bernie, they've got to find out ways to let guys go out and fail, right? I mean, they got to.
It's true.
Let them succeed and fail, don't they?
Yeah, and they've also got some puzzle pieces as usual. It just always seems to happen. It's like, okay, I'm totally good with Burleson playing first base, which is, actually he's a better first baseman than an outfielder. And then listen, I'm going to say this, and it'll come out the wrong way. I don't mean it to. Let Jordan Walker fail terribly in right field. I don't really care. I do care. And I would hope by now they'll actually, kind of get him some instruction to maybe help him learn how to play right field better.
Pretty nice. Yeah.
Just a thought. But the whole thing about Jordan Walker is I just want to see him reestablish that he can be a force offensively. I can live with another year of bad defense. And then maybe if something happens with Arenado, maybe down the road, you can move him to third. But the one puzzle piece that's tricky to me, you can't take Brendan Donovan off second base. Not really. I mean, you can, but they're going to have plans in their outfield. I don't think he'll play in left field as much as he has. But then again, if Burleson's at first base, who knows? But Nolan Gorman ought to be the third baseman, but they have Arenado. This would be a reason. I know it's a different subject, and I'm not trying to change the subject. This would be a reason there's several to think hard about trading Arenado if he wants out, because I think one thing that can happen is getting Gorman at third base, his natural position. And then again, with all these guys, it's a matter of just, all right, can they hit, and can they hit well, and can they stay there with, some slumps mixed in, but without going over the edge of the cliff,
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think Arenado falls into the whole salary reduction conversation we were just having too. There are a lot of questions still hanging out there. Matt, any other roster moves that you see or roster decisions that jump out at you?
Just to go back what everybody else said, I think those three guys with Arenado, Contreras, and Gray, which one of those guys want to stick around? And I know Gray was really comfortable in St. Louis, and I feel like that could be he might like being part of it. I thought it was really interesting as the season went on last season to watch Arenado really start to give to the younger players, and there was so much talk going in the season about his lack of leadership. I saw a guy that was sticking around in the cafeteria after the game and talking to guys, and who I heard younger players talking about how he was somebody that they could go speak with. It felt like when he realized that he wasn't putting together the kind of offensive season that he had in the past, he felt like he had to lift up somewhere else, and he did that by really giving to other players. So does that lead you to believe that maybe he'd want to stick around with the young guys? Maybe Contreras is the one. I mean, we all know about his end of season comments where he basically called out the Cardinals front office to make more moves. I feel like if we're talking about those three, and those three get that conversation about, are you with us or do you want to move on? Contreras would be the one that would be most worried that he would say, you know what, I'd like to go somewhere else.
Tom, real quick, final thought on this. One of the things is the Cardinals are in limbo, and this applies to their payroll and how deep they're going to go with cuts, but also, with those three guys that could or could not be traded. But the other thing, and I could be wrong about this because maybe after the World Series they'll announce some coaching staff revamp or something, but they're kind of in a holding pattern because you're going to have Heimblum taking over, a year from now, and then he's going to have to make a decision on what manager that he wants, and my point is that I would like to see a coaching staff shakeup, because I think they're keeping two, based on media reports, they're keeping two of the three hitting coaches. I mean, saying bye-bye to Turner Ward. The other two guys, all the media reports that they're going to stay. But what else are they going to do? I think the Cardinals need to have better instruction. I think they need to have better teachers and people that are also more open-minded to a lot of the advanced stuff that really does matter in today's game. I think Dusty Blake has actually done a good job. I know he's associated with Marmol, so there's going to be people that will insist, well, he's the worst pitching coach in the history of baseball and all that. Because it's just like Ali Marmol, because people can't stand Mozeliak, they'll never give Marmol a fair shake. And then that even carries over to Dusty Blake, where they don't like Marmol, so they'll never give Dusty Blake a fair shake. Dusty Blake did some good stuff. But I really want to see just a freshening of the coaching staff. But that's where I get back there in limbo, though. How do they do that? Because a year from now, first of all, how are you going to convince like really good up and coming coaches to come here when it's like, well, wait a minute, the manager could be gone after 2025. There's a new guy taking over. Yeah. This team's offering me like a 4-year deal or whatever. So this is where you're kind of in limbo, because during the reset, reboot, rebuild, where it does prevent you from going forward in a way. It really does.
With Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler, I'm Tom Ackerman. We have so much happening right now in sports, and college football has captured the nation's attention. 12-team playoff upcoming. You know what? All four of us currently sitting here with ranked teams among our favorite teams. You got Bernie's Navy midshipmen ranked 24th in the country. They're 6-0. The K-State Wildcats are 6-1. Matt Pauley's Kansas State team is ranked 16th in America. The Miami Hurricanes are 7-0. They're ranked 6th in the country. And look at this. The Indiana Hoosiers have been welcomed to the club. Thanks for letting me in. Ranked 13th in the country. They're 7-0. They're hosting College Game Day. It's absolutely nuts, Bernie. I don't even know what to say anymore about this college football season. It's been crazy.
Well, first of all, you're going to be at the Indiana game, and yes. I challenge you to wear something like crazily wild and eccentric. I don't know what that might be, but they've got those old, just those red and white striped garb. I see people wearing pants like that, and I see you need to wear something outrageous.
Wear a Bob Knight jacket
and make a complete. You got to make a complete fool of yourself, and you need to be lubricated, well lubricated. Before
that won't be a problem.
In the stadium.
Put my arm around Nick Saban, maybe during after game day. I'm excited about it. I know that college football, right? So the number one team in the country is Oregon. Number 2 is Georgia. I don't think there's any question that those two are the best two teams right now. You got Penn State and Ohio State out of the Big Ten also making a case for themselves. And I think Texas isn't necessarily going away, with Miami right there behind it at 6. And there are some other teams involved. I'm curious, and Wheels, I'm going to start with you, where you think Illinois and Missouri come to the table here. So they're ranked 20th and 21st, respectively, each with one loss on the resume and each with very difficult games coming this weekend. How do you see those two teams?
Well, first, I think that spot 2021 is about right, based on what I've seen. I think there's upside. It feels like Mizzou is just kind of like not at their potential. To me, they're just off what I think they could be, where some of the games are closer than they should. Like this past weekend. I mean, they got the win. They pulled it off. We give them credit. A great drive in the fourth quarter to win the game. But, I mean, that's a 4-loss team. That shouldn't come down to a final drive if you're going to be a playoff contender. So I think Mizzou is actually better than Illinois, but I don't think they're playing better than Illinois. I think Illinois is playing better football right now. And while Michigan is not Michigan, guys, I mean, they came in with the preseason ranking. They came in with the name and the national championship. They don't have a quarterback. They can't throw the football. And they're not the physical offensive line that they were last year, so they can't impose their will on you either. If I'm looking at these two, it's going to be really tough to make a case for a playoff spot. Does either one of those teams get consideration at 2 losses? Because I don't think so. I look at all those teams above that you just listed. Even if they lose 2, they're going to be ahead of Mizzou. They're going to be ahead of Illinois. You're going to probably going to have to win out or come close to it if you're going to have that chance. And again, maybe not your own fault, but look at the teams above you and look at their records. If all of those teams end up with 2 losses, the ones that are currently in the back are going to stay in the back.
Yeah, I see that. Bernie, Missouri doesn't really have. I mean, A&M, the loss, they got demolished.
Yeah,
but they don't. It's not like that's a terrible loss as good as A&M is. They just don't have a great win. I mean, the story of Brady Cook is incredible. I mean, that he goes to the hospital and comes back and on one leg brings the team down the field. But when all that kind of wears off, you do look at Missouri and say, well, what have they done so far? I mean, they just haven't been there what people thought they were going to be.
Yeah, and listen, man, I'm not one of these people that just like whines about the national media or whatever. And I stopped paying attention to the AP poll years ago when the college football playoff rankings take it over in a few weeks. The AP's irrelevant. And the coaches poll, I would like a lot more if I knew coaches actually voted, but they don't. The SID votes, right?
Yeah.
Or an assistant SID. So I look at more of the advanced things, whether that's the way to go or not. And I think those two, I think Illinois and Mizzou are close, but it's funny how Mizzou, they move up after beating UMass, and then they move down after beating Auburn on a day where their starting quarterback missed 2.5, maybe longer than 2.5 quarters.
Yeah.
That's why. So now you understand why I pay no attention to the AP poll. It's just it's gobbledygook. They just make it up as they go along. Anyway, aren't I cranky? I'm always I got to be the cranky. I got to be the cranky one on here. No, listen, but one of the questions was like, who do you think is better? And I have a hard time saying, like, I'm looking at, Sports Info Solutions. I've got all these great metrics, and among Power 4 power conference teams playing against FBS teams, Illinois has got the better passing game. Illinois has got the better receivers. This is about individual performance. Illinois has got a couple guys that are going to be playing in the NFL. We know that Missouri will have one, LB3. But if you look on the other side of the ledger, Missouri's got a better rushing attack. They've got a better pass defense, and they've got a better run defense in Illinois. So it's kind of pick your poison. But let's face it, as of right now, as enthralling as what Brady Cook did, and it was great, I still have questions about him going forward. And I look at Luke Altmaier. He's a quarterback at Illinois. Just simply doesn't get discussed enough on the national stage. I mean, if you look at – I don't look at completion percentage. I look at on-target percentage because they're two different things. And, for example, Altmaier's 13th among all power conference quarterbacks in that. And it's 69 teams on that list. And Brady Cook is 58th. He's just not accurate. And I don't know if that's going to come back. Their offense the Mizzou offense cannot function at a high level unless Brady Cook just turns into a much more accurate thrower. And that's really been an issue for him this season.
What do you think, Matt? What do you see there?
Yeah, I think first off, Illinois has the potential to have just a much better resume than Missouri. So if Illinois loses the game to Oregon, their 2 losses this year would be Oregon and Penn State, 2 teams that are likely in the college football playoff. And again, that's assuming they beat Minnesota, Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern. That game at Rutgers is probably the toughest remaining game outside of Oregon. For Missouri, they're likely to lose at Alabama. So their 2 losses are against a Texas A&M team that's probably not in the college football playoff, and an Alabama team that right now doesn't look like they're going to be in the college football playoff. And they've still got Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas after that. South Carolina's tough. Oklahoma is not bad. They just made a change at offensive coordinator this week. So I think the resume is going to be better for Illinois if they each finish with a record of 10-2. You put those 2 teams on the field together, though, I like Mizzou. I think Missouri has more talent. I think Missouri's the better team, but that doesn't matter. What matters is win-loss record and how you win the games and who you beat, and Illinois clearly has the better resume.
Kevin, is there a team nationally that's not being talked about enough? Is it Tennessee? Is it I keep seeing Notre Dame kind of hanging around. Clemson's been creeping up a little bit. Are there any teams you think that could be a factor in the playoff?
Man, I have a hard time with every team out there right now. I don't know if anybody's great. I mean, Oregon deserves to be number 1, but are they that much better than anybody behind them? Is Georgia? I mean, Georgia and Alabama in the past handful of years have always looked like they're just better than everybody else. And I don't think they do. I don't think Georgia looks like the dominant team that they've been the last few years. So when I'm looking at teams that could make playoff runs, I think there's probably 8, 9 of them that wouldn't shock me if they advance and make it to the championship game. And if I'm talking about a team that maybe is flying under the radar a little bit because they got off to a terrible start, it might be Clemson. You know, like, I don't think Cade Klubnik is very good, but I also think he's getting better as the season goes along. And as stubborn as Dabo is about not getting too involved in the transfer portal and the NIL stuff, he's still a great offensive mind. And they figure things out as they go. They've got a big physical running game. You got a quarterback that can run it a little bit. And if he could figure out a little more consistency in throwing the ball, Clemson will be dangerous in part because they've been there, done that so many times. So I guess that might be the flying under the radar part, is this is a team with a coach that's won big and some players that have been a part of some good teams too that are really not getting any conversation.
Sure is fun, though, isn't it, Bernie? I mean, you got the service academies in there. You got
Yeah.
a 12-team playoff looming. Everybody still thinks maybe they're in it to some extent. Who knows?
Yeah, Army and Navy, by the way, they haven't been undefeated, each of them, this deep in a season since 1936. It's unbelievable. And they're probably going to play each other for the American Conference Championship. And then the following week, they would play each other their normal game. So and I'm an Army fan too, except for one game a year. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. And it shows that college football is not broken either. Indiana's sudden rise shows college football is not broken. But two teams I wouldn't sleep on. I think Texas A&M is like quietly a scary team, because I think Mike Elko is an excellent coach. He's getting more talent out of that talent than Jimbo Fisher ever could, because Jimbo Fisher was too busy worrying about all these ranches that he owned down there. You know, I got ranches. You know, well, you brought into coach football. You know, so
yeah,
I think Elko's very good. But again, Texas A&M's also got LSU's got to play there. I believe they go there, so we'll know a lot more. And I think and this will make Matt Pauley happy, but I'll defer to him. But Kansas State's also sneaky great, and I don't think the Big 12 is very good, but he's one hell of a football coach, and they've shown they can win, and they can find a ways to win those really tough, closely contested games. So I think they're probably a little overlooked right now.
They got blown out by BYU, and I feel like that's gonna, the way Missouri's lost to Texas A&M sits there, that's gonna sit there for K. Although BYU, they're really good.
But what if K-State doesn't lose the rest of the way? I'll throw it to you, because I really do want your opinion on that.
Yeah, well, then
Can you overcome the one bad loss?
Yeah, with one loss, you're fine. It's when you have two losses and you've got a bad loss on there. I think the 2-loss teams are the ones that are really challenged.
Just win the Big 12, you don't have to worry.
Yeah,
right. The Big 4 get buys, so
that's right.
Go win That's my thing with Miami, right? We can't stop anybody. The defense is terrible, can't cover anybody and can't tackle, but they can score. And my only concern is win the ACC. You do that, you have nothing else to worry about.
And listen, just a tip of the cap to Rocco Beck, the son of Battlehawks coach Anthony Beck. Rocco, like, I thought they were going to go down for Iowa State the other day, and then he rallied and scored the game-winning touchdown. Like, basically his time expired. I don't know that Iowa State intrigues the heck out of me, because they keep winning and people keep thinking, well, it's just a matter of time, and it really isn't. They've been really good, but are they a playoff team? It depends on what happens in the Big 12, how close up to the top they could be there.
They finished with K-State for the annual Farmageddon.
Ooh, oh, there you go.
They call it Farmageddon.
They used to.
That's pretty
They realized how wacky it was when they got rid of it, but
they
used
should
to
have
call
kept
it
it.
Farmageddon.
Yeah, they should have kept it.
How did I not know that?
You'd be proud of the Midwest, man.
Bernie Miklasz is with us, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler, Tom Ackerman. The NFL has reached week 8. The Chiefs are 6-0. They're the only unbeaten in the NFL. Who knows who the best team in the league is? I'll tell you who it is in the Dallas Cowboys. The owner, Jerry Jones, goes off on our sister station down in Dallas, the Odyssey radio host, who he talks to all the time, Bernie. He has for years. He just he shreds them and threatens in some ways to get rid of them. And, old Jerry has been in control of the Cowboys for a long time, and they are a big nothing to me. It's funny. I just laugh when I hear him get out there and start doing his thing. You know him well.
Listen, Jerry's been asked tougher questions on that show, on that station for many, many, many years.
Mhm.
He's been grilled on there. But the Cowboys have embarrassed themselves lately, and everyone keeps pointing back. Everybody, who follows football in terms of national media, they keep pointing back that, well, they didn't do anything in the offseason. They didn't even manage to care about having one quality running back. And, they let a lot of these other areas go soft. And that's Jerry, because he's his own general manager. So he's heard that. It isn't that the Dallas guys said that to him or asked him about it. It's just that Jerry follows everything said or written by national media, and he has just been pounded over and over and over again about last offseason. He did nothing. So it's extra sensitive. But he is definitely the problem there. And he always will be. And that's why I said Matt Pauley, I said that last week with him on Sports Open Line with Matt. The Cowboys at this point are famous just for being famous. They're the Kardashians of the NFL. And it's never going to change because this is a celebrity worshiping culture. It's a vapid sports culture. And the Cowboys somehow continue to live on this. Oh, man, this is the greatest franchise ever. Oh, the Cowboys, they're unbelievable. No one's like them. Well, they haven't really won anything of meaning in a long time. I mean, last Super Bowl was the 1995 season, I do believe, or maybe the 94 season, 95, when they actually played the game. But they're the Kardashians. And they're always going to dominate the ratings. That's why every network is just slobbering. They can't wait to go do a game in the late afternoon showcase slot. It's very annoying. The Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFC right now, and the Chiefs are absolutely the best team in the AFC because it doesn't matter how many weapons or assets you take away from Patrick Mahomes. He's going to beat you anyway. And Steve Spagnuolo and that defense does not get enough credit. They are phenomenal. So they have the better all-around team of all the teams in the AFC. But there's a chance that, if something goes wrong, and there's other really good teams in the AFC, but right now you got to see the Chiefs are the best.
There you go, Kevin, your Lions.
I love this team, man. I mean, that win yesterday on the road against an unbeaten Minnesota Vikings team that's really good and has a strong defense, to do that with your star defensive player out for the year with a broken leg. Aiden Hutchinson went down last week. They didn't have time to replace him. Hopefully they will. Hopefully they'll figure out that, they can afford to give up a third or a fourth round pick for a veteran pass rusher that's going to be available, because they're a Super Bowl contender. They showed that last year. They don't have any weaknesses on offense. The only way they have a weakness on offense is if they have an injury, because they have one of the best lines in the game. You got a smart quarterback. You've got two great running backs. You've got 3 or 4 guys that catch the ball tight from the tight end position to the wide receiver position. There's no flaw there. But on the defensive side, the one thing that really saved them was the fact that Hutchinson was unstoppable. He was an unstoppable pass rusher, and they had no pass rush yesterday.
And they rushed 5 a lot yesterday.
Yeah, they did.
Because I was keeping tabs on that. They rushed extra guys a lot. And Sam Darnold, maybe a couple of times he was harassed, but yeah, they're going to have to at least try to plug in for Hutchinson, because that is a really bad loss for them.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
And thank God for Brian Branch, because he might be one of the best young safeties in the game. And not only did he have a great interception, but he made a couple of big tackles, a couple of big pass breakups. They have pieces, but they got to replace Hutch, or they're going to have a hard time later in the year.
Detroit has Tennessee. They have Tennessee on Sunday. Sunday night game is going to be Dallas at the Niners. KMOX is going to have the Thursday night game, Minnesota at the Rams. I'll get to the Rams in just a minute. They're really irritating.
Yeah, I got something for the Rams.
But Matt, before we do that,
not
to leave you out, Matt, any NFL teams that are jumping out at you that have a shot?
Well, look, we already mentioned Kansas City, but let's take a step back. Patrick Mahomes threw for 154 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and the Chiefs win by 10 at San Francisco. It doesn't matter anymore with Kansas City. As long as Patrick Mahomes just figures out something, as long as Andy Reid continues to be the best coach in the NFL, and to Bernie's point, as long as that defense continues to keep them in games and more, there's nobody that's gonna beat them in the playoffs. I mean, it is remarkable. Sometimes you look at the box score. The box score is supposed to tell the story of the game. Box score doesn't tell the story of the game with the Chiefs.
As our old friend Joel Bushbaum, remember Joel Bushbaum, Bernie used to say, "You do what you have to do to win the damn game."
That's right.
What the Chiefs do.
And Mahomes yesterday was like, okay, well, I'm going to run it then. And they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
The guy's nuts. I mean, he's unbelievable.
So I got up early this morning, my typical 3:30, somewhere in there, and I'm looking at the Post-Dispatch, and I see the Tommy Edman, NLCS, and that's one thing that gets me. Then the other LA story, that the LA Rams are going to try to exercise their option to buy Rams Park for $1. And this is part of their deal, their 30-year deal, that in year 29 they could go do this. Bernie, why can't we get rid of this team? I'm tired of hearing about it.
Well, they're just trolling now. And, this guy whose name shall not be mentioned, he's got an estimated worth of $17 billion. You'd think enough would be enough at some point, right? I mean, he did the thing where he bought the biggest ranch in America. And he threw people off the property that had lived their whole lives there. And one gentleman committed suicide because he was in such sorrow. And, he's booting elderly people off ranches. So should anyone, in addition to a million other things, like giving Rams employees gift cards to, again, a business that shall not be mentioned, but then tabulating how many Rams employees, this is when they were in St. Louis, he actually kept a watch on how many Rams employees actually used these gift cards to the store that will not be mentioned. And when he found out that it was a very low percentage who used the gift cards, he ended the gift card. No more gift cards for you. I mean, this is how petty this guy is and how deranged he is. So is anybody surprised by this? And the thing I don't like is that it's a troll job and it's working because we're talking about it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be talking about it. And everyone in St. Louis is talking about it. I think the best way to move forward from this is at some point, don't allow this man who should not be mentioned. Don't allow him to live in your heads. That's all I'm trying to say. But anyway, I'll shut up now. I made my point.
Well, look, this applies to Jerry Jones as well. Stan is mentally not right. There's something. I mean this sincerely.
It's childhood.
There is something wrong with him here that ruins him here. And he does not care about anything but stacking up coins. And this is not a defense of him, by the way. I think he's a horrible human being, one of the worst human beings, not just because of what he did here, but like Bernie mentioned, throwing people off of the land that they've lived on their entire lives when it doesn't matter to him. He will never be there. He'll never spend time in that place. None of it matters. None of it. He won't spend any of the dimes that he'll make by buying Rams Park for $1 and then selling it for whatever he's going to be able to make off of it. That guy is sick. And I really think there are a lot. I think we could expand it beyond the NFL, but I think the NFL is the worst behaved group of owners on the planet. Way worse than baseball, way worse than basketball, way worse than hockey. They are by far the most cutthroat, sick-minded group of owners in sports because they just do this stuff nonstop. They already have the most profitable sports league on the planet. You can add up the two biggest soccer leagues in the world. They don't add up to the NFL. In fact, I think they add up to like 70% of the NFL's annual revenue. They don't need to be doing any of this. They already have the big cash printing machine. And it shows you how horrible they are. They are horrible human beings. Jerry Jones, you are a horrible human being. And you know what? They're cowards because they won't stand for any real questioning. As soon as anybody questions them, they're going to threaten their jobs or they're going to stop doing the interviews or anything like that. So real tough guys, people that will not stand up and answer for their own sickness.
Jerry Jones, by the way, many moons ago, was a life insurance salesman in St. Louis. He was. He told me stories about trying to sell life insurance.
And now he's taking people's lives away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I got a lot of Jerry Jones stories about the night that I saved him from getting arrested in New Orleans. But we won't go into that today when I was covering the Cowboys.
Another show.
One other thing. Can I do this? I know we're running late. People have asked me, like, since Wheels used the first name, Stan, he let the cat out of the bag. Right. People have asked me a lot. It's like, why is he the way he is? Like, what is wrong with him? Like, what's broken? I know the answer because he told me. we were back when we were talking a lot. He told me about his childhood unsolicited and how dirt poor they were and how he would, this little small Missouri town, and how he would go to school and the other kids would make fun of him and pick on him because he was wearing hand-me-downs that weren't in the best of shape, and his shoes had holes. And if there was something like a shirt was ripped or stained or something, they would just tease him all day long. And he told me, he said, people, Bernie, asked me where I get my motivation. I says, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. And so this is why, instead of being a decent man, right? Now he's the guy. He is the person picking on the helpless and the people that aren't that are beneath him in status.
Yep.
And so he's become what he used to hate.
Yes.
He is a very strange man. But it all started in that little Missouri town where he just constantly got picked on and ridiculed because his family was so poor, and he wore really bad hand-me-downs to school.
Yeah, and I got news for him. Not one of the people that did any of those things to him are the ones that he's damaging now.
Yeah, exactly.
Kindness wins, and we forget that so often.
Look at that. Matt's all about kindness, and
he is very kind. So for Matt, for our final little whip around, you get for your kindness statement, because you are a kind fellow.
He is.
Not that the other guys aren't. Tell me, let's promote what you have going on this week for each of you. So you're the host, for people who don't know, who are just tuning in. Excuse me, for the first time. Matt Pauley is host of Sports Open Line. What do you got going on this week aside from NFL interrupting you on Thursday?
Yeah, 6 to 8. We'll have full shows every day but Thursday, half hour coming up on a Thursday. For today, we're going to talk a lot of college football. The Missouri-Illinois weekend I thought was really compelling. The conversation we kind of got into, who's got the better resume. And obviously, we've got a week until the World Series gets underway. We talk baseball every single day between 6 and 8. And
Wheels, you are on the DGS in the afternoon.
Yeah, I would love to tell you that there's a plan, but I mean, we just roll, man. So everything. I saw
you guys having a little meeting in there.
We'll have Bernie coming up. He'll be on today. He'll be on Friday. We do tons of sports. Obviously, we talk everything else. We try to avoid politics as much as we can, but everything else that's in the news, entertainment. We're doing a lot of Halloween stuff because we're coming up on it. Best vampire movies, by the way, today is our Sweet 16. So if you guys have any hints, text them to me. I love vampire movies.
Bernie, aside from making your appearances on KMOX, you also have your own YouTube channel, which I highly encourage people to subscribe to.
Yeah, and I'm going to start doing more of those, just shorter, because the response has been so. I'm grateful for the response, but it's easy to find. All you got to do is Google my name, Bernie Miklasz, Miklasz, and YouTube, and Bernie Miklasz Show YouTube, and you'll get there. And also, I'm on X, and if you follow me on X, I always link to them, but I enjoy doing them. And I'm still doing some writing for Scoops Network, not as much as I used to because everything's so busy, but I'm grateful to be busy. I'm grateful that I actually am employed and can actually still make a few dollars off this. This is good.
Just don't make Jerry Jones mad. He might come over.
That's right. That's right. And I'm the co-host of Total Information AM, except for Saturday, where I'll be busting in on the College Game Day set in Bloomington.
Go get them.
Guys, thank you. Always great to catch up with you. These roundtables are fun. We'll do it again soon.